All right, guys. So I'm gonna try something new here. This is gonna be a little podcast trial, if you don't mind me saying that. So we have like the regular podcast. We're gonna be talking about NFL, game to game, week to week, kind of picks and what we feel like is gonna happen. Um, what happened this past week, what we go over, but for this live stream, we're going to be going over fantasy only. So if you have something to talk about when it comes to fantasy, just drop it in the chat. We'll talk about it. If you have something to talk about NFL, that's fine as well. We could talk about it. But we want to focus on just fantasy football for this live stream. So I'll be here probably for around 30 to 40 minutes, and then I'll be swapping over. Um, let's put some music in the background. So for this week, top players in fantasy football rankings, week 3. Standard. It's going to be Patrick Mahomes, quarterback. Christian McCaffrey, running back. Justin Jefferson, wide receiver. Travis Kelsey, tight end. And Justin Tucker, kicker. Half PPR is going to be the same. PPR is going to be the same. IDP. So for this week coming up, they had Patrick Mahomes, the number one QB. He's projected at 25.10 points. And this is for standard, I believe. Yes. In general, he's projected around 25 points, depending on where you're at, what you're doing. Whether that be half PPR or PPR. Number 2 ranked quarterback coming up this week is Jalen Hurts versus Tampa Bay. It's a 3-star candidate. Projected points is going to be 22 and a half. Number 3 quarterback is going to be Josh Allen versus Washington. 21 and a half points. You got Lamar Jackson at number 4 going against Indianapolis. Projected around 21 and a half points like Josh Allen. Justin Herbert projected 20 points coming up this week against Minnesota. Kirk Cousins projected 19 points coming up this week. Tua going against Denver at number 7. Projected 19 points. Trevor Lawrence at number 8, projected 19 points. Dak Prescott projected at 18 points versus Arizona. One thing I will say, that's pretty sad. You're going against Arizona and you're only projected 18 points. We're talking about the Cowboys here. For running back, Christian McCaffrey, obviously, ranked number 1. For the season, ranked number 1. Looking like that real breadwinner. If you drafted Christian McCaffrey and your number 1 pick to number 5 pick, even if you drafted him later, even if everyone passed on him, whoever got him in your league is for sure winning at least one game so far. He's projected at 18.5 points against the Giants. At number 2, you got Tony Pollard, projected 15.5 points. That's how much the drop-off is. Him to any other running back. 18 points to 15 points. That's how big of a drop-off is. You don't really see that in any other position besides tight end. That big of a drop-off and production. You got Derrick Henry projected number 3 this week against Cleveland, 14 points. I don't believe this one. What we've seen so far from Cleveland is some excellent run defense so far. I don't see Derrick Henry getting more than 14 points, but if you got him in your league and you drafted him, you pretty much knew the risk. A guy that I'm not really high on, but is number 4 on this list, is Bijan Robinson. And the reason why I wasn't high on him is because he was a rookie coming in. But when we look at Atlanta, what they're going to be doing this year is running the ball. And they're going to be looking to running the ball effectively and all the time. So he's projected at 13.5 points. Standard, of course. This is not PPR, half PPR. This is just standard. At number 5, you have Joe Mixon. He's number 25 ranked this season. Clearly upsetting. Anybody who drafted Joe Mixon should really feel upset about their pick, especially with all the hype surrounding the Bengals finally possibly getting a good start after 3 years with this team. But yet, again, an 0-2 start from the Bengals. Really, we're just looking for them to get any sign of progress on the ground to really give Joe Mixon back that fantasy value that you drafted him for. At number 6, I got Josh Jacobs, running back for the Raiders. They're going against Pittsburgh this week. Pittsburgh, when you look at them, they get the ball ran up on them every week. Doesn't even matter who you play. Nick Chubb went down. Jerome Ford took over, and Jerome Ford absolutely deleted the Pittsburgh defense. If it wasn't for that ending play, I believe Cleveland would have won. And it would have been partly because of their running game. Well, actually, mostly because of their running game. At number 7, I have Travis Etienne. He is projected at 13 points. They're going against Houston. Houston does not have the best defense. Look for him breaking that. At number 8, I have Austin Eckler. It just depends on if he's playing or not. If he's playing, we all know what he can do. He usually gets about a touchdown a game. Huge fantasy production out of that guy. But then again, we don't know the status of how he's doing, what that injury is looking like. He's projected at 12.5 points. If he plays, he gets more than that. This is Minnesota we're talking about. Definitely take the over. Number 9, Kenneth Walker. They are going against Carolina. About a 5-star candidate this week. Carolina looks like they don't have the best interior that we saw out of them last year. Projected points is about 12.5. Standard. I have this as a over for me. At number 10, the last spot, we have Raheem Mostert from the Dolphins. They are going against Denver. Is about a 4-star candidate this week, projected at 11.5 points. Nothing really much to say about this one. Denver, their defense isn't the best, and you're going to hear this throughout this entire session. Most of these defenses just allow way too many run yards on the ground. So it looks like coming off of last season where it was a very throw first mentality with a lot of these teams. It looks like it's translating more this year into a run first mentality for a lot of these teams. But I do believe it's week to week. It's based on matchups, and coaches are constantly changing their game plan based on matchup. For wide receiver, number 1, Justin Jefferson. Got to go with JJ. He's projected about 15.5 points. He is going against the Rams next week. About a 5-star candidate. Sounds about right. He's averaged so far 20 points a game, or more. Half PPR about 20 points. Full PPR about 23, 25 points. Standard, this has it at 15.5. I would have him in the over. Tyreek Hill, number 2. They're going against Denver. Definitely have him at the over. About 15 points, projected points. I think Tyreek Hill has a phenomenal game against Denver. Didn't really see too much last week against the Patriots, but we'll see against Denver. I believe they throw it to him early and often. At number 3, I have CeeDee Lamb going against Arizona. Projected about 13.5 points. I have him at number 3. At number 4, Ja'Marr Chase. It's pretty upsetting. We don't know what's going on between Joe Burrow and Ja'Marr Chase. I think this might be looking like an underplay, but at the same, it also depends on if Joe Burrow is playing or not. If Joe Burrow does not play, we want to look and see what kind of effect that's going to have on Chase. There's a lot of question marks on Chase right now, so that one I'm not going to give an opinion on over or under, but he's projected about 13 points, standard. but I will say that the matchup does not look like it's in Cincinnati's favor. The Rams haven't been playing bad at all. They've been playing actually pretty well. This last game, it is what it is. They're versing the number one team in NFL right now, the San Francisco 49ers. They are the number one team in the NFL. I don't care what anyone says. They're the number one team in the NFL right now. That's who they versed. Puka went off. Puka's my number 5. I have him at 13 and a half points. Stephon Diggs is my number 5. Sorry, my number 6. I have him at 13. They're versing Washington. About a 5-star matchup. You want to look to probably go for an over on this one. Got Devontae Adams at number 7. Number 8, A.J. Brown. They're versing Tampa Bay, my team. We'll see how that goes. Tampa Bay is one of those teams where our defense loves to show up when they want to. Then there's times where for the entire game, we don't show up. At number 8. Sorry, number 9. I'll give it to Keenan Allen. Really nothing much to say. Number 1 target for Justin Herbert. Been going off. I would take it over on this. They're going against Minnesota. Projected about 11.7 points. I'd have him way more than that. At least getting a touchdown. Especially with Eckler being unknown. If Eckler does not play, Keenan Allen, look for him to explode. Amon-Ra St. Brown. It's my number 10. 11.5 points projected. Versing Atlanta. Atlanta's been playing very, very well. So this is somewhat risky if you take the over on this one. But at the same time, Amon-Ra has phenomenal connection with, Jared Goff. Them two look solid, and he's been passing it like crazy. Both games, I look at that team, and I think that their passing game is going to continue to be like the focal point of that group. So Amon-Ra, great receiver. I wouldn't mind taking the over on that. Calvin Ridley, another great receiver. Couple others. But that's pretty much it for wide receiver. Tight end. Travis Kelce is projected the most. He's going against Chicago. It just makes sense. Chicago's defense is putrid. Projected about 12.5. I definitely would have the over on him. Number 2 is Mark Andrews. They're going against the Colts. Projected about 9.5 points. That severe drop off, like I was saying, when it came to like quarterback, same drop off. Or sorry, when I was talking about running back, Christian McCaffrey to everyone else. Insane drop off again with tight ends. Travis Kelsey, and then the next one is a couple points back projected. It's insane. Travis Kelsey, obviously number one. Number two, TJ Hawk, been receiving a crazy amount of volume from Kirk Cousins, crazy amount. But he's only projected about 8.5 points. They're going against the Chargers. The problem is the Chargers have been scored on by like every team so far this year. The Bucks have scored on them. Like their defense just gives and gives and gives. Look for TJ Hawk to go over that. Mark Andrews projected about 9.5 points. I think I have him against the Colts. I would have him on the over. And the reason why I have Mark Andrews on the over is because now the Dobbins is out. Now the OBJ's out. Really, he's going to be looking to be that number one guy on their squad in targets. He's that veteran that knows how to get it done, and he's got it done in the past. There's no reason to stop trusting Mark Andrews. So I have Mark Andrews at number 3. Number 4, this one's tough. It can either be Darren Waller or George Kittle at number 4. But I have George Kittle just because Waller hasn't really shown much yet. But next week, this can change, like based on what happens. They are going against San Francisco, Darren Waller, and then George Kittle's going against the Giants. I think I would rather take George Kittle over Darren Waller this week. George Kittle is projected about 7, almost 8 points, 7.9. I think I take Kittle on the over on this one. Darren Waller projected about 7.2 points against San Francisco. If we look and see what the Rams did against the 49ers, what they did was they threw these short passes to Puka, to Kyler. What was his name? Kyler. I don't something Williams. Kyren. Sorry. With the Kyren. And what they did was basically just do like little screen plays. Kind of just threw the ball middle of the field, let them get the hard yards. So if the Giants have the same kind of mentality and they do film and they watch this game, Darren Waller is going to be a big piece for them, especially because Saquon's out. Look for Darren Waller to be on the over this week. The next person who's projected to have 7 points is Evan Engram from the Jaguars. They're going against Houston this week, about a 4-star candidate. Really nothing much to say on this one. This one's more of a risk play just because Jacksonville has not been able to get much going besides their Calvin Ridley. So this one could be either way. I'm not going to really tell you an over and under on this one. Here's a guy that I don't really have too much faith in. At number 7, I have Goddard from Philly, tight end from Philly. And they're going against Tampa Bay this week. The problem with Goddard is he is not nearly receiving enough volume. They have way too many key pieces for everyone to kind of get a touch. And it's kind of like a coin flip of who's going to get a touchdown every week. Is it going to be Swift? Is it going to be Jalen Hurts? Is it going to be Goddard? Is it going to be, Devontae? Is it going to be AJ Brown? Is it going to be, I don't remember the guy's name. Fuck. Gainwell? All these guys are elite. It just brings Goddard's chances of getting a touchdown or getting any kind of plays where he gets enough targets is going to be a question mark. You don't know when it comes to Philly and how much they're using him. But what I will say is he's still a great player, phenomenal player, but we just don't know. Another guy that I'm not high on, but yet he's ranked number 8, 5-star candidate from Atlanta, Cal Pitts. They're going against Detroit this week, who lets any and every offense score on them. Projected about 6.5 points, and Kyle Pitts has yet to show me anything. The entire season last year, nothing. So far this year, nothing. Don't expect this guy to pop off anytime soon unless you see Ritter actually target him more than 5-6 times a game. I don't really see the fantasy value being there. That's all I got for tight ends for the flex spot. Honestly, it just depends on who you got, right? For this flex spot, you can go anybody here. You really want to. It depends on what kind of league you're in. If you're in a full PPR, half PPR kind of league, but you really want to go with somebody who's been consistently scoring for you these past 2 weeks. So you find somebody, grab them, trade for somebody. If you have 2 guys that are scoring around the same every week so far, grab those 2 guys, see if you can get something done with a trade. Defense. I'm only going to go through the top 4 this week. For week 3, you got the Chiefs being projected number 1 with 10 points. 5-star matchup. They're versing Chicago, which has yet to be able to get anything done. Number 2, you have the Cowboys going against Arizona. The Cowboys are damn near the number 1 or number 2 defense in the league. Micah Parsons is disgusting. That guy, I watched him do a crossover and show the guy that he was going to do the crossover and then did it anyways and got the sack. He is disgusting. Absolutely a beast that we have yet to see in this league before. He is going to be a Hall of Famer, future Hall of Famer. Absolutely. Take the Cowboys defense on over. Number 3, you have New England Patriots projected at 9.5 points. The reason why is because Zach Wilson and the Jets cannot throw the ball. If they do, we're looking at a takeaway or 2, possibly to the Patriots. Zach Wilson is good, but he makes terrible decisions at the wrong time in the game. Without takeaways, we're looking like that team is still really good. Top 2 in division. pretty good. At number 4, the 49ers, damn near like the Cowboys, number 1, number 2. You know, those two teams both have phenomenal defenses. I'd put it like right there. Like Cowboys number 2, 49ers number 1. Or Cowboys number 1, 49ers number 2. You can have it either or. They're projected at 9 points, 5-star matchup against the Giants. We saw what the Giants did against a good defense in the Cowboys. 40-0. Look towards the same thing with the 49ers. You know, it doesn't have to be that big of a blowout. But then again, the 49ers have put up 30 points in 2 separate games so far. That's it for defense. For kickers, Justin Tucker, obviously number 1. I don't think I really need to discuss this at all. Harrison Butker, number 2. Jason Sanders, number 3. And Brandon McManus, number 4. Tyler Bass, number 5. That's just projected on this week. Now let's look at some fantasy leaders. Let's look at quarterback. I'm gonna go through the top 5. Oh no, let's go through the top 10, and then I'm just gonna name them out, and then we're gonna decide if they stay or if they don't. So for number 1 in fantasy, Kirk Cousins. Number 2 in fantasy is Jordan Love. Surprising. Number 3 in fantasy is Justin Herbert. Number 4 in fantasy is Russell Wilson. Number 5 in fantasy is Patrick Mahomes. Number 6 in fantasy is Tua. Number 7 is Anthony Richardson. Number 8 is Mac Jones. And number 9 is Jalen Hurts. Number 10 is Jared Goff. Now, who actually had this list the first 2 games? I didn't. If I would have made a list from scratch, I would have told you Patrick Mahomes or Jalen Hurts is probably going to be number 1 out of the 2 games that have been played so far. Number 3, I probably would have Justin Herbert or Kirk Cousins. So that makes sense. You know, they're in the top 3 already. But to have Jordan Love at number 2 spot, only having 2 points less than Kirk Cousins. 43.34 points, while Kirk Cousins has 45 points. Insane. I know a lot of you have Russell Wilson on your bench right now, or in some of your fantasy leagues on the waivers, just not even on a roster. Go and pick up Russell Wilson right now. I know this is a stretch, but right now he's playing at the number 4 quarterback spot. You know, if you have a Justin Fields, if you have, you know, a Daniel Jones, or you have a Sam Howell or Deshaun Watson or Geno Smith, Brock Purdy, CJ Stroud, some of the guys that were expected to score a lot, but ended up not having much impact in these first 2 games, look to trade them or get rid of them, like drop them and pick up the quarterback that you need. If you're desperate for a win, you're 0-2, and you have Justin Fields, you have a Sam Howell, you have Anthony Richardson, you have any of these guys, you need to bench them and go get yourself a quarterback. Right now, target is looking like Kirk Cousins, Jordan Love in fantasy. Russell Wilson is another one that you could pick up probably for free. Nobody has him. Daniel Jones had this past good week, but I don't think it continues. He does have some fantasy value though because he loves to run it in, he loves to get that rushing touchdown. So Daniel Jones is a viable play. Kirk Cousins, Jordan Love, Justin Herbert, Russell Wilson, Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts. He, he's been all right. That's all I have to say about that. We have yet to see him blow up in the passing game in the Eagles offense, but they're looking all right. It's just the first 2 games of the season. We haven't seen really much yet play out. But if you have Fields, a guy that runs the ball like crazy last year, it's looking scary. All right, let's go to running backs. All right. Number 1 in fantasy, Christian McCaffrey. Number 2 in fantasy, Brian Robinson. Number 3 in fantasy, Kyren Williams. Number 4 in fantasy, Raheem Mostert. Number 5 in fantasy, Tony Pollard. Number 6 in fantasy, Bijan Robinson. Number 7 in fantasy, Saquon Barkley. Number 8, Derrick Henry. Number 9, Tyler Algier. Number 10, David Montgomery. Montgomery's out, so we won't go over him. Christian McCaffrey, damn near the best pickup in fantasy alone. Looks like he's the equivalent of having like 2 fantasy players in your league. If you got Christian McCaffrey, you're one lucky person. And if you got Christian McCaffrey, the first pick in your draft, you're not upset at all. You're feeling really good. Number 2 is Brian Robinson in fantasy. He has put up 39.5 points. A little bit less than Christian McCaffrey, but he has been getting the usage that's viable for fantasy. Have him in your starting lineup? Absolutely. Kyren Williams, the Rams. What happened to Cam Akers? Everyone thought he was going to be the guy for their squad. If you picked up Kyren Williams in your waivers, you just picked him up, you're feeling really good. He's number 3 in fantasy right now. I don't see that changing. He's getting the touches. He's getting the pass attempts. He's looking like a top 5 running back this year in fantasy. You're feeling really good about yourself. Raheem Mostert. For the Dolphins, he's been pretty good. Pretty good. I actually thought he wasn't going to get as much usage, but the fact that he is means that the Dolphins are a winning team and they do want to win the games because there's a lot of talent there. Tremendous talent. Tony Pollard. Where do I rank him, man? They have him number 5. I think he continues to get the touches that he gets. Dak Prescott cannot be throwing the ball 30 times a game. He cannot be trusted throwing 30 to 40 times a game. Look for Tony Pollard to be a top 5 fantasy option this entire year. Bijan Robinson, a guy that surprised me. He's number 6 in fantasy right now. If you drafted him knowing that he was a rookie, you are feeling very happy with yourselves knowing that he is number 6 in fantasy, uninjured, and knowing that the Falcons' play this year is to run the ball. He's a great fantasy pickup. If you're looking to trade for him, you're going to have to give up a lot, knowing that all these running backs have went down. Speaking of a running back that's gotten injured, we're talking about Saquon Barkley next. Fantasy number 7 on running backs. Really nothing much to talk about. He's got an ankle injury, at least out 3 weeks. We'll look and see what he's going to look like after when he comes back. But Barkley has always gotten injured every single year. There's something that came out a little while ago about, and it came out today, about the NFL checking on whether or not there's a um, player association player association on running backs, on how they're not getting paid enough and how they're faking injuries. There's a report on this. You can look it up. I'm not lying to you. Um, Apparently, there's players out there faking injuries, and this is at the running back spot. Not saying that they are faking injuries, but there is a report saying that there's a possibility that running backs are. And this is by the NFL. And they're searching into this. Derrick Henry, number 8. I mean, he's been top fantasy for the last 5-6 years. I don't see him going anywhere unless he gets injured. There's always a possibility. If you picked up Derrick Henry, you know this. If he gets injured, he's out for like half the season. And when he comes back, your team is already in shambles. So if you drafted Derrick Henry, make sure you have a backup plan. Have another running back that you can rely on. You know, either trade him away now while his fantasy value is decently high, or you need to think about picking up another running back and having him on your bench. Because Derrick Henry every year usually gets injured around week 3 to week 5. Not saying he will get injured, but there's a possibility. With his amount of usage, he usually gets injured. But this year it looks a little bit different. He's actually not getting as much as he was last year and the year before that. He's been getting about 48 to 52% of snaps, which is way less than he used to get in the past. But yet, I still have him being, top 10 in fantasy if healthy. Tyler Algier, RB2 behind Bijan. Not really feeling him too much. He is a threat to get touchdowns because Bijan's going to be doing most of the work. He's kind of like the Kareem Hunt to Nick Chubb, like years past. He's kind of like the same kind of guy, the AJ Dillon to Aaron Gordon kind of guy. Sad to see David Montgomery get injured for Detroit, but it gives a chance for Jahmyr Gibbs. So we'll see what happens there. I'm still not high on the guy. They drafted him with the expectation that he was going to be the guy that is that RB1 for them, but it has yet to show it. All right, we'll go to the most targeted players so far through week 2. At number 1, we have Puka. How insane. Puka Nacua, a guy that you guys probably haven't even heard of until week 1 to week 2 fantasy. Nobody drafted this guy. He was a waiver wire pickup for everyone. And if you got him, you're feeling comfortable at least through week 5 until Cooper Kupp comes back. At number 2, Justin Jefferson has the second most targets. Puka has gotten 35 targets through these last 2 games. Insane. Justin Jefferson, number 2, at 25 targets. Number 3 is Tyreek Hill at 24 targets. Number 4 is Michael Pittman at 23 targets. Number 5 is Chris Olave at 21 targets. Number 6 is Kendrick Bourne at 20 targets. Number 7 is Stephon Diggs at 20 targets. Number 8 is T. Higgins at 20 targets. Number 9 is Nico Collins at 20 targets. And number 10 is Robert Woods at 20 targets. And those targets are shared with Calvin Ridley and Keenan Allen. Both of those guys also have 20 targets. Lots and lots of targets for these guys. But the biggest surprise to me is Puka Nacua getting 35 targets out of these last 2 games. That's incredible. Really showing everyone that he is that guy. What's up, Gary? Gary Ricarte. Hello. Hello to you too. Was offered Josh Jacobs and Amari Cooper for Garrett Wilson and Kyren Williams. Josh Jacobs and Amari Cooper for Garrett Wilson and Kyren Williams. This is a tough one. The reason why it's tough is because Kyren Williams has been going off and damn near looks like a great fantasy value moving forward. If you have Kyren Williams, you're really feeling great about yourself right now. And I don't think Josh Jacobs and Amari Cooper is enough. Garrett Wilson, yes, I would trade him away instantly. With Zach Wilson being the head of that squad, Garrett Wilson's fantasy value completely dropped off from where it was with Aaron Rodgers. If we're redoing the fantasy draft right now, we're looking at Garrett Wilson being a low second rounder, third rounder. Without Aaron Rodgers, obviously. That's a tough one. I can see that being a really good trade. If Josh Jacobs actually goes off. But the problem is we haven't seen the Raiders offensive line be able to create some kind of space for Josh Jacobs to do something. We know how good Josh Jacobs is. He was, pretty much the best last year. I think he was. And Amari Cooper, we know what he can do. He showed a little glimpse last week, yesterday, for the Browns, catching a couple nice catches, really creating a lot of, trying to think of the word here. Creating a lot of connection with Deshaun Watson, really getting that chemistry going. Amari Cooper finally getting the touches that he deserves. So it's a tough one. If you see Kyren Williams not doing anything, this is a really tough one. But I think Kyren Williams is that guy for the Rams moving forward. Josh Jacobs is a tough one, man. You had Saquon go down, so I'm feeling pressure. Yeah, everyone is, but Saquon's going to be out 3 weeks. Probably around 3 weeks. I would assume 3 weeks. He has an ankle injury. So you have Josh Jacobs and Saquon, I'm assuming, right? And Stevenson? Okay, so you're not feeling pressured at all. Josh Jacobs has such potential to go off this year. So does Amari Cooper. Kyren Williams is very solid. Let's go ahead and make that trade. Garrett Wilson and Kyren Williams for Josh Jacobs and Amari Cooper. You have Stevenson, who's going to be the number one guy for the Patriots. I say Josh Jacobs and Stevenson, and then Amari Cooper over Garrett Wilson for sure. That's a good trade. You should really feel pretty proud about that trade. hit eject right away with Wilson. I agree. I agree. You do not want to hold on to Wilson. You can get really good fantasy value out of him right now from people who aren't paying attention. But for the people who are paying attention, um, Watson doesn't look so great either. So a bit concerned. Yeah, but he versed two tough defenses. Like the first game wasn't so tough, but the second game, the Steelers defense really got to him. But yet he still targeted Cooper. Cooper's still getting those targets. I think it's too early to abandon ship on Cooper. I have him in my leagues, and I'm still high on Cooper. You got to remember he's the number one receiver in the Browns offense, and they just lost Nick Chubb. So if Ford's not getting it going, look for Cooper to get 20, 25 points in fantasy. Should I sell Puka while he's high or hold? I think Puka still has great fantasy value, and I believe he's a must start until Cooper comes back. Or Cooper Cup, yeah. So with Puka, you keep him for at least another week. If he pops off again, you sell him high. Even if Cooper Cups comes back and plays like he's the number one target on their team, Puka still is going to be getting, he's not going to be getting, 35 targets in 2 games. I'll tell you that. But he's going to be receiving at least, I want to say 10 targets. That's a pass first kind of offense. The problem with Puka is that he's not getting any red zone targets. If Puka got any red zone targets these last 2 games, we'd be talking about Puka being like a guy that you hold on no matter what. The reason why people are trading him right now is because he's not getting red zone targets, and they see him just, you know, being that guy that gets you like the yards. He's really good in PPR leagues, but in half PPRs, I can see why you want to trade him. Aim for players like Waddle and Olave for Puka or higher. You have Stevenson and Josh Jacobs now. If you don't have too much faith in Josh Jacobs, you go ahead and trade for a guy like Waddle. Chris Olave, I think Puka has higher ceiling than Chris Olave. At least right now, until we see what happens when Cooper Cups comes back. But with the production and with the targets that he's receiving, I don't think he's even a trade right now. And in my eyes, like I see Puka like being the guy that you start in your flex spot because he just gets that many targets. I have him in a half PPR league and a full PPR league, and he has been going off in both of them as a starter. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens, but he just went up against the 49ers defense, and he had a little chest injury, I believe, and he still went off. Like Matthew Stafford is enjoying this guy. This guy has been receiving the most targets that we've seen since Michael Thomas in his prime years, with Drew Brees. So I don't see Puka going anywhere. In fact, I see his fantasy value rising as each game plays. Thanks for all the advice. I'm holding Puka, I think. Yeah. Good trace. Good choice. How about Jalen Warren from Pittsburgh over Najee Harris getting all of the targets, getting 12 targets a game in these last 2 games? Not really getting too much fantasy value, but tons of targets. Kyren Williams, 12 targets a game. Tony Pollard, 11 targets. All right, so let's go over some guys that you need to add to your squad right now if they're available. We'll go over them. Brian Robinson, if he's available in your league, go get him. Figure out a way to either trade for that guy or go get him if he's on waivers. Joshua Kelly, another one of those guys that needs to be rostered. Kyren Williams needs to be rostered or started. Started for pretty much everyone. Get good trade value out of him right now if you have him. Like amazing. You can get amazing trade value out of him right now. Just like Jerry. Jerry just traded him away for Josh Jacobs and Amari Cooper. Garrett Wilson, like just be glad you got out of him when you did. Jerome Ford, pick him up right now. Go pick him up. Kendrick Bourne. With the amount of targets he's getting, he's gotten 20 targets out of 2 games. There might be a consideration to go grab him. He has potential. He really wasn't that guy. Nobody really knows about him. Wasn't really the number 1 guy or number 2 guy like ever. Kind of like a veteran player that has just got like on track and really had a breakout so far. But go pick him up. I don't think he's a starter just yet. But it depends on whether or not Mac Jones has something to say about it. All right. Now we go over some of the guys that you should probably sell. Derrick Henry. I think everyone's been talking about this forever. Derrick Henry is 29 years old. He isn't getting as much touches as he has in the past, where he would get 65% of snaps. He'd be playing for it. Even if he didn't get the ball, he was blocking. But the number 2 running back, Spears, is doubling his touches pretty much every week. Derrick Henry's only receiving about 48% of snaps. That's not a good sign for Derrick Henry owners. Look to get out of him, trade him and one other bench wide receiver, running back. Try to get out of him for somebody good. Go get Kyron Williams. Go get Jerome Ford. People will make these trades. Jahmyr Gibbs, another one. A lot of people are saying that he's going to have an increased role on this Lions squad now that Montgomery's hurt. Problem is, will he, though? We have yet to see him have the touches that he deserves. The only time we saw Gibbs get actual touches was when Montgomery got hurt. This is a guy that coming into the league as a rookie that everyone thought was going to be rookie of the year. Thought that he was going to get crazy attempts, crazy yards, go off the season, be that guy for the Lions, the RB1 that we all expect. You should have saw how hyped they were after drafting them. But Gibbs have yet to see any touches that we were expecting. So I placed this guy in a sell. See if you can get somebody like a ETN. See if you can get a. Let me see who else. See if you can get like a Stevenson, a Mixon, a Waddle, Brees Hall. These guys right here. You want to see if you can get these guys because right now it looks like it's going to be a split backfield with the Lions after Montgomery went down. We'll see what happens. Maybe hold on to him for one more week. If he doesn't get the touches that he deserves to get, you need to be trying to sell this guy. But if you wait one more week and he doesn't do anything this week 3, his fantasy value is going to be dramatically dropped from what it is right now. Because of all the running backs that went down this week, he is a high target, especially now that Montgomery is gone. He's a high target. Sell high right now if you can, and if you have a backup running back, if you have a Ramondre Stevenson on your bench, if you have some of these guys on your bench that like are running backs that are, you picked up a Jerome Ford in your claim in your waivers, like you have backups. You could sell high now before it gets worse. Because if this production gets worse, or if he gets a ton of touches and doesn't get the yards, doesn't get the touchdowns that he should be getting with those amount of attempts and touches, you need to be selling. You're going to be selling low next week. So sell high right now while you have the chance. Let's see. Is there anybody else I want to talk about? James Conner looked pretty good. He's a guy that you can also look to sell. Arizona is rebuilding. I think that's pretty easy to say. I don't think anybody will, try to go against that. I think it's easy to say that James Conner is probably going to get traded by the end of the season, traded away for new draft pieces and draft capital. I think Arizona is looking to get that tank and get that number 1 pick. Damian Pierce is another guy that you should probably look to sell. I don't really have to go into why. I talked with, you know, a guy in the chat, Jerry, traded away Garrett Wilson. It's a good option. You don't want to hold on to Garrett Wilson. The reason being is because Zach Wilson is the quarterback now. Garrett Wilson had incredible like hopes all crushed whenever Aaron Rodgers got hurt within 4 plays. It doesn't look like their offense is going to be that efficient. They should be really running the ball now that Garrett Wilson is their quarterback. Look to sell Garrett Wilson high if you can, but most people aren't going to take him high. So try to see what you can get in your league, but you want to look to try to get a running back. If you don't need a running back and you need a wide receiver, take Garrett Wilson and a guy like Puka or a guy like sorry, not Puka. Don't trade Puka. If you got a guy like Garrett Wilson and a guy like Javonte Williams, or you have a Kyron Williams, Sky Moore, who else? Damian Pierce. Like you take trying to figure out what I'm gonna say here. Take both of them and go trade for somebody who's actually worth it. Go get you a wide receiver 1. Go trade for Jamar Chase right now. Whatever league you're in, Jamar Chase owners right now are questioning themselves whether or not they should keep or sell. And right now that you can get Jamar Chase for pretty low. I've seen some trades out there. Pretty low. Go get yourself a Travis Etienne. Go get yourself a Jamar Chase. Take 2 of those guys. Go get the trade done. All right, guys, that's going to do it for me. Been doing it about an hour and 10 minutes. Nice. So that's about 3 hours today that I live streamed talking about fantasy, talking about NFL. We'll be back at it next week. I'll try to see if I can stream again tomorrow. I'll talk more about fantasy tomorrow. I have like a little live Q&A. It might be only like 20, 30 minutes, but we'll see. But yeah, guys, that's it. This is my first, well, technically my second live stream now on YouTube. So leave a like, subscribe, check us out next week. Same time, Tuesday, 6 o'clock. It'll be me and my brother Sammy at the Santos Show. Peace, boys. Thanks for watching.